Canoe design is really important, and you need to understand a little bit about it when you choose a boat. There are boat designs that are very long and very slim and very fast, designed for racing, for long-distance touring. There are boats that are short, wider, more maneuverable for rivers and streams. Basically, design depends on your function. You decide what you want, and you find a boat to fit it. So let's turn these two boats over and see what they look like underneath, and we can show you how that works. So this is a typical example of a long, skinny, fast touring canoe. This is a Minnesota 2, 18.5 feet long, 34 inches wide. What makes this boat so ideal for long distance tripping is this very, very fine entry line here. So this parts the water very, very cleanly. And you'll also notice that this part here doesn't get fat very quickly. It stays slim for a long time. Now that lack of fullness here makes the boat sit down deeper in the water, makes it harder to turn, but it makes it very fast and very efficient over long distances. You'll notice this canoe doesn't have a keel on it. Well, that's because it's a modern design. Most modern canoes don't have keels on them because they're frankly not necessary. Most boats that had keels on them were flat-bottom boats that were put together half and half, kind of like an aluminum boat. As long as they're putting a seam down the middle of the boat, they put a keel on it to make that boat track. Without that center keel, aluminum boats, or any flat-bottom boat for that matter, will tend to skid rather than go straight. This design in particular has what's called a shallow arch. Now the shallow arch is a curvature along the bottom of the hull. The rounder the arch, the less stability there is in the boat initially, but the faster it is. So most designs look for a compromise between a flat bottom and a perfectly round bottom. Shallow arch is a good compromise for a couple of reasons. Number one, that arch makes it stiffer. So when you push down on it, it's really stiff. If you have a flat bottom boat, it's going to be a little bit more flexible and therefore less efficient. The other advantage of a shallow arch hull is that it has very good secondary stability. What do I mean by that? Well, a flat hull has good initial stability. The way I look at a flat hull is like a kitchen chair with 4 feet on the ground, right? You lean the thing and all of a sudden you're over, okay? With a shallow arch hull, it's more like a rocking chair. When you first get in the boat, it's going to feel a little bit wobbly initially, but as you lean the boat, the secondary stability kicks in like a rocking chair. When you first sit in a rocker, you wiggle around a little bit, but the more you lean back, the more you lean forward, the more the chair pushes back. A good canoe is going to be just like that. The more you lean it, the more it pushes back. Ultimately, it's a better canoe for most conditions, and it's going to be more stable in the long run. So the Aurora is about 4 inches wider than the Minnesota 2. It also has an arch that's a little bit flatter than the Min 2. This one's just a little bit more stable. So the long, slim, highly arched boats are really fast. The shorter, wider, shallow arch boats are a little bit slower. It's a trade-off between speed and stability. For people who want stability, they get a boat like this. People who want speed buy something like that. It just depends on your use. So rocker is the way you measure the curvature of the hull from the bow to the stern. How much the boat looks like a banana versus like a straight line. So this Minnesota 2 long skinny tripping boat has almost no rocker. If you take the string and pull it tight, there's maybe a ½ inch to an inch of space between the stem and the string here. So just enough to make it lift a little bit at the stems. It actually makes it a fast, efficient, straight tracking boat. Let's measure the rocker of this Aurora now. This is a shorter boat, 2.5 feet shorter than the Minnesota 2. A little bit wider, but look at the rocker difference. This one here has, geez, almost a handspan of rocker in it. With all this rocker, this boat's going to be a lot more maneuverable, especially if you're paddling on small streams and rivers. You want to really get around those obstacles. So there's 3 different ways you can shape the sides of a canoe. You can have flare, you can have it straight, you can have tumble home. So flare is when it points out, away from the center of the boat. That deflects waves when you run into them. Straight, pretty much straight up and down. A tumble home, like here, curves back in towards the boat. Now why would you want to do that? Usually you'd want more flare. Well, you can't reach the water if you've got flare all the way down the side of the boat. That, and it's kind of ugly. So on this boat, they tuck the gunnels in the center to let the stern paddler reach the water a little bit easier. So the Aurora is very different than the Minnesota 2 in terms of its entry line here. You can see it's much more blunt. It also has a lot of volume right in here. The volume helps lift the boat up and over waves rather than punching through them. It's not as quick, but it's drier. A lot more flare in here also helps spread the water and get it out of the way. So for chop and waves, a little bit of moving water, this works better than the Minnesota 2. For long distances where it's flat, you're just punching through chop, Minnesota 2 works better. The Minnesota 2 has a very narrow entry line. As it comes up here, it's very, very narrow to cut through the water. Also not a lot of volume in here. Makes it a really, really quick boat.